Hi there. Have you ever had a really dry pork chop that tasted like shoe leather? Today I'm going to show you how to make a really juicy pork chop that's been grilled, and we're going to have some herbed, buttered mashed potatoes with it, and we're going to have a green salad with a homemade balsamic vinaigrette dressing. Okay, first we're going to brine our pork chops. And I already have some in the refrigerator that's been brining for about an hour and a half, and I'll show you how to do that brine. But the science behind that is, with a pork chop, once you start cooking it, you lose about 20% moisture. And then once you've cooked it, that's what makes them so dry. So with brining, you're actually putting moisture back into the meat. And it's fabulous, and it really makes a juicy pork chop. So now that we've got our brine cooled down, and it should be like right at room temperature, because again, you don't want to cook your meat when you're putting it in this bag. And I'm just using a regular Ziploc bag, and we've got our nice 1-inch pork chops. They're boneless from our butcher shop here locally. You want to put, and of course this is just for 2, but obviously if you want 4 or 5, however many people you have for dinner, that's what you want to use. And you just want to kind of stand this up and pour your liquid in. And what you want to do, I've got a Pyrex dish here, glass dish ready to go. You want to seal it. It's kind of tricky, but you also want to get as much air out as possible. And then we're going to put these in the refrigerator for an hour to an hour and a half at the most. You don't want to do any more than that length of time. I know a lot of the recipes online say up to 24 hours, but I find that the pork gets mushy when you brine it that long.
So we are at Ryan's Fatted Calf. It's like the only decent butcher shop around here. And but boy, I'll tell you what, it's worth the drive up here to Bowling Green. And it's about 30 some odd miles from the house, and we have to pack some cooler bags and stuff like that, but we come up here and stock up all the time. They have all the spices and sauces you could ever want. And you got good natural charcoal. If you're into more rubs and seasonings. Oh, man.
Interesting squid ink.
Yep.
Oh, there's your boards for your salmon too.
Oh yeah, salmon boards, cool.
All kinds of.
Some local jerky. Some more rubs and sauces. All kind of good stuff. They have all kind of cool homemade baked goods. How cool is that for listing all their vittles? prices are right reasonable too.
Okay.
2 pounds of ground chuck.
Okay.
I want the boneless chops. 2 boneless chops.
Okay.
Pretty about, what do you want, an inch or half inch?
I think we should go an inch.
Inch.
Okay.
3/4 to an inch.
And then two 6-ounce filet mignons.
I'm sold out of filet. Unfortunately, I'm sorry.
Oh, bummer. This is why you got to get here early.
What would you
That's the
have?
man with the plan right there.
Any other kind of steak you have?
Oh, we have everything else but fillets, like the
How about
prime
New York
strips.
strip?
Yeah, the prime strips.
Let's
are
do
nice.
2 New
That'll
York
work.
strips.
About an inch.
About an inch.
Yeah, that'll work.
Was there anything else?
We're just gonna have to suffer through with that. God, I don't know how we're gonna go, how we're gonna make it, honey.
I think that was it. I got the real cream.
This is the cool thing about having a local butcher shop. We get stuff from local farms. There's some local heavy cream there we'll use in our mashed potatoes and fettuccine alfredo and all that good stuff. We have our bag of goodies from the butcher shop. Woo.
We're going to go ahead and prepare our potatoes because they take the longest. And I'm using a Yukon Gold potato with the skin on. You can take the skin off if you don't like that in your mashed potatoes. But Yukon Gold are very buttery and they're really good. So I've got some water boiling on the stove and I've added about at least a couple tablespoons of kosher salt to it. You always want your water salty just like you do in pasta, because that imparts flavor into the potatoes. So I'm just going to get these chopped up and get them going. I've got the potatoes all cut up now, and I've got them in like-sized pieces and small pieces, and that way they cook evenly and quickly. So let's get these in the boiling water. And I used about 5 medium-sized potatoes. Now this is to feed 2. Our potatoes are boiling away and they're just about done, so I want to go ahead and make my balsamic vinaigrette dressing and have that ready to go with our salad. To get started, I use just a supermarket brand of balsamic vinaigrette, and then I'm using olive oil and then a lot of spices, and then I like sugar. I like mine heavy on sugar. Some people like their balsamic vinaigrette not as sweet. So what I'm using is, this is 1/3 cup of balsamic vinegar, and I'm going to mix this in a mason jar because that's just a great way to mix it up. You don't have to whisk it or anything, just shake it up. And then I have 1/2 cup of olive oil. You want to use a little bit more oil than vinegar. I've got 2 tablespoons of sugar, and if you like, you can use honey in place of sugar. And I have about a teaspoon of garlic powder, and everything else I just a dash of this and that. I've got dried parsley, red pepper flakes, makes it spicy. Go easy or heavy depending on how you like spice. I've got a little basil. All of this is dried. This is oregano, and I'm going to have some freshly ground black pepper in it. And I've got my pepper grinder set on a medium grind, so you've got bigger chunks of pepper in it. And then of course some salt. And then you always want to taste everything after you mix it up and make sure it's right for you. So then you just shake. And you want to emulsify that oil and that vinegar together to make a really smooth consistency. What I usually do is I take a spoon, end of a spoon or measuring spoon. You want to do that. That's perfect. Tastes really good. It's going to be really good on our green salad, and I'll show you how to make that salad a little bit later. The potatoes are done when they're fork tender, or you stick a knife in them and you see how soft they are. These are definitely ready to go. And normally I know you would take a colander and drain them and put them back in the hot pan, but I'm trying to save this hot water because we still have to make our pork chops. And I'll show you a trick to keep your mashed potatoes nice and warm for up to an hour. And I'm just using what's called a spider to get these out. This is like one of the best inventions ever. It works for all kinds of things. I'm going to show you how to make garlic butter, melted butter, and fresh garlic, because you really don't want to put just raw garlic in your mashed potatoes. Sometimes that's a little bit too strong, and this will tame it down some, but it'll still be delicious, and the melted butter will be just perfect in those potatoes. And we don't want it to burn our butter, but this is a bunch of butter. This is a whole stick. But I usually put that much in mashed potatoes. And obviously you would up these quantities if you're making more. And when you see your butter starting to foam around the edges and bubbling like this, you need to keep stirring this so it doesn't burn and your garlic doesn't burn. I've got some chives and parsley here that I've bought from the supermarket. And you're not going to need a lot. That's the chives, and then here's our parsley. It makes a pretty presentation too with the green in there. And I kind of just fold them up, hold them like in a little bunch, and just get them chopped, and then we'll chop them again. You just want to go through there and get them fairly chopped up, all this. Starting to mash my potatoes now. I start them dry, and then I'll start adding the butter, and we have a really treat today. I'm using heavy cream, and this is cream that was locally sourced from a local dairy at the butcher shop where we go and get our meats. It's so good. So once you start getting this mashed up and fairly smooth, you want to add your garlic butter. You just put it all in at one time, and that did provide quite a bit of moisture, so you got to be careful. You want to add the cream a little bit at a time. You want to get it creamy, but you don't want runny mashed potatoes. So and then we've got our cream, and I'm going to shake this up a little bit. It tends to settle. I'm going to start with again, this you're going to have to eyeball, because I can't give you exact measurements depending on your potatoes, what kind of potatoes they are, how dry they are. And that is going to be all the cream we need. They're there. We really don't need any extra. So now you want to salt and pepper. You can always put more salt in. You can't take it out. So start with, probably a couple of pinches. And the pepper, I've probably got about a pinch, 1/8 of a teaspoon in there. And before I add my fresh herbs there, I'm going to go ahead and taste this and see if it needs any more salt. That's actually really good. I think that butter and garlic added so much flavor, you don't need any more salt. So now we're just going to sprinkle in all of these beautiful herbs. And I'll go ahead and use this since I don't want to use my fork again. I contaminate it. And this is beautiful. You'll have to get a picture of this. The trick I have now, because I have to still make my pork chops, I'm going to cover this with foil, and the water that I had for the potatoes is simmering. You put foil over your bowl. The bowl obviously needs to be bigger than your pan, and it's almost like a double boiler, and it will keep your potatoes warm up to an hour. So this is a great trick, like at the holidays, Thanksgiving, because if you get your potatoes done before the other, that really, really helps out.